Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name's Johanna. I'm from the UNicoin Network. And good to see so many of you joining as we're looking forward to introducing to you to one of the latest blockchain innovations in the UN system, and one that I really care a lot about for a number of reasons. So one is that it's kind of pioneered by Young UN, and Young UN obviously is just awesome. If you're not involved with them, you should be involved with them. Great bunch of people. The second is that they're trying to create visibility and recognition for collaboration and interagency work. And I think that's so important. Many of us do it so much and it's not often recognized. And it's critical, I think, for new ways of working in the UN. And finally, it's because this team, this UNicoins team, was one of the teams who joined the Reimagine the UN challenge, which we ran last year. And it was really great to see them kind of grow and develop and the idea shape up as part of the challenge, and then kind of root for them as they were presenting in the final. So a really special team, a very special, apologies, project. I'm very excited to see where they've taken it so far. And today we're joined by three very relaxed team members. We have Eleonora Gatti from UNICEF Innovation, and she's a developed deployment at scale specialist there. We have Mark Liberati, he's a policy specialist at UNV, and Michaela Markova, who's an associate crime prevention and criminal justice officer at UNODC. What a title, Michaela. And of course, these three are only some members of the broad UNicoins team. I'm sure there's like many more colleagues who have worked to get to where you are now. But
Johanna, I just noticed that we also have Akash. I'm sorry to...
Apologies, Akash. So one of the many more team members. Great to have you here with us, Akash. Thanks for letting me know, Michaela. And with that, I think I'm going to hand over to Eleonora, who's going to take us through the session.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and great to see so many of you here. It's really fantastic. So today the presentation is going to be interactive, and we're going to have a couple of polls, but most of all, we're really here to get your feedback, your suggestions, your opinions, because you're all interested in blockchains and your blockchain developers, designers. So we're really keen to get your help and your suggestions. So today it's all about UNicoins. Incentivizing and making visible cross-UN collaboration for the SDGs. So to start with, as I just mentioned, we have a poll because we're really keen to see who is in the room. Unfortunately, we're on the virtual room. So we have the first poll here to discover who is in the room. So we'll keep it a couple of seconds open. And this will really help us know how to tailor the presentation and make it interesting for you and get the conversation going today.
Eleonora, my ambition is always to get to at least 75% response rate. So currently we're at 62. Come on, colleagues, take your pick. What is your experience with blockchain? Nice and easy question to start the day. 74, come on, one more, and we're over the 75. There we go. And here are the results for you, Eleonora.
Great. So, so we've got the majority, I would say, the limited experience in using blockchain. That's great. So we hope that you will feel inspired and learn something new today. We also have close to 20% of colleagues that have a lot of experience using blockchain. So we're very pleased about it because you will be key in this presentation, and also a couple of colleagues that are new. That's great. Thank you, Johanna, for running the poll for us. Great. So as I said, we're really here to learn from you and to seek collaboration and to seek your expertise. So the UNicoins is an idea that, as Joanna mentioned, is the result of a lot of cross-UN work. UNicoins was inspired by Young UN Network, which is a network within the UN with close to 2,000 colleagues, young, but not only young in spirit, we say. And the Young UN Network operates with small teams that come together and work on projects that are really passionate about. So there is no hierarchy, there is a very friendly and informal space. And so during the many conversations in Young UN, this idea really, sorry, is you wouldn't believe it, but it's the track and trace calling me for the coronavirus. So apologies, I had to keep the phone on. So within this space, we have developed an idea to really increase the collaboration within the UN. And one of the great projects that Young UN worked on back in 2019 was the development of this report, Navigating to the Next UN, which polled many thousands of colleagues in the organizations to get their feedback and their experiences on working in the UN, and also their perspective on the future of work in the UN. And one of the results that came strongly from this report, and we encourage all of you to have a look at it because it's very interesting, was the need for colleagues to collaborate more with other colleagues from other agencies and from other UN organizations. So we really took this result at heart in the Young UN network, and we used it to develop a solution that hopefully, when fully implemented, will really incentivize cross-collaboration and will really make each of you keen to collaborate more and more for the SDGs. As Joanna mentioned, the UNicoin is the result of the Reimagine the UN Together challenge. UNicoins are digital tokens, we hope soon blockchain, hosted on blockchain, that represent UN personal time spent on cross-UN collaboration. So far, we say that one coin represents 1 hour, but we're still very much discussing how the tokenization of time will work in the future. We're also extremely pleased that we have just after months and months of work of the entire team and also support from very motivated UN online volunteers, we have managed to publish a paper which came out a couple of weeks ago, incentivizing and making visible cross-UN collaboration for the SDGs. The paper is visible at the moment on the Unite Ideas website. Cash and other members in the team can share the link in the chat. So we have closed the comments on the 20th formally, but we are still very much accepting comments from all of you to improve the paper and to then publish a second version taking into account all of your feedback and suggestions. So in terms of UNicoins token circulation, the idea here is not for UNicoins, despite the name, to be a coin that colleagues will accumulate in their wallets, right? And the more you have, the better it is for you. The idea here is to have a system with lots of incentives for the token to circulate in the system as fast as possible, because every time a token is exchanged between one team and another team, or between one colleague and another colleague, it means that there has been a collaboration between those two entities, and that is what is important to us. It's really about ensuring that these tokens keep flowing, and we also have inbuilt in the system certain incentives for colleagues not to keep their tokens in their wallet, but to use them as much as possible. And we're also kind of working on an idea potentially to have those tokens expire after a certain date if they are not used, to really disincentivize the colleagues not using and not collaborating as they should, really. And we have during the development of the coins, we have had amazing and inspiring conversation with lots and lots of organizations outside the UN. For example, we talked with the Time Banking in the UK and many other organizations that are using tokens, also time tokens. And we have taken all of these inspiration and developed then the system that you can read in great details in the paper, and also learn a little bit more later on when Mark will present technical features of the paper. And the idea, the bottom line, is really to have a circular economy of collaboration, a seamless collaboration across UN agencies that, as you know, is not always as seamless as it should be. We have presented two models in the paper, because we thought that potentially these tokens can be used in many different situations, and so we have come up with two models. So the first model is called a collaborator-led model, and it's a model that is very much inspired by the model of the Young UN network. So it's a model that allow each individual member that joined the UNicoins community to have their own personal wallet. Later on, when the system is in place, will be a blockchain wallet of coins, and to initiate a collaboration with another colleague or with another team. So the individual in this model is very much in charge of initiating the collaboration opportunity. Instead, the manager-led model, it's a little bit more similar to the traditional, more hierarchical system that we have in the UN, whereby a manager in a team holds and is the owner of the wallet, and that manager will then initiate the collaboration and will exchange UNicoins with another manager of another team. Although the collaboration might happen between team members, the coins at the end are held in the manager's wallet. Both systems can coexist at the same time. We're not trying to kind of have a situation where we go for one or the other, but rather with your help and with the help of many other colleagues, the aim here will be to pilot both models and to really understand when the collaborator-led model will work the best and when the manager-led model will work the best. So later on in the presentation, we'll have a couple of ideas of scenarios where these models can work, and we will ask your feedback and your opinion. In the for both models, I wanted also to mention that they will be connected to a skill sharing platform. So another idea that the Reimagine the UN Together challenge, I think came second place, if I'm not mistaken, was Connecta. And the Connecta is a skill sharing platform for finding the right collaborators in the UN system. So if in your team, for example, you don't have a videographer and you very quickly need a videographer, then the idea is that you can jump onto that platform and find the right person. And then UNicoins, given that there's a lot of work happening to make this across UN collaboration platform happening, then UNicoins ideally could connect as the token to be exchanged every time there is a successful collaboration, a successful collaborator is found on the Connecta platform. However, we have ideated in such a way that could be used with any other platform, not just with one particular platform. So all of your agencies can potentially use it when it's in full swing. And for the second part of this presentation will be a little bit more technical, so I'll pass it on to Mark Liberati, who's been very much involved in the development of the paper and the concept. Over to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleonora, and good morning and good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for UNIN for giving us this opportunity to give you a little more of the deep dive. As Eleonora discussed, there was those two models, and each of them are very distinct, so it'd be very critical when we get to the Q&A portion if you could be providing some feedback. But I think before we get into that, I want to give a bit of a sense as to what is the value of a UNicoin. Because we want people to not only, as Eleonora was describing, exchange them, because with each exchange, it's an hour captured towards the SDGs within the UN system. And that's a very powerful tool if we can create more of this goodwill collaboration circulating throughout the system. But we want to make sure that this is something that's very recognizable and valuable to the participants. And so here, in thinking around this, we were inspired much by gamification and as well as badges, as often blockchain has the ability for both badges and tokens. And sort of in the memification of our era, the bits and bytes. So for those who are aware of how computers have evolved over time with bits, you'll notice that it was set at levels of 16 hours for 16 bytes, going to 32, 64, 130, 128, and 256. Now this doesn't necessarily be fixed, but it's just to give a sense of how you would accumulate your UNicoins and what that would give you as badges, but also in thinking more importantly, what those badges then give you as a user right. What are you gaining as you're moving up those various levels? So first of all, it's thinking around how this is one ecosystem. The idea of UNicoins is you're building a digital ecosystem upon which those UNicoins are transferred, but they're transferred in a way that is actually validated by the community. So it's creating community because as they're transferring, there's community validation for those hours. There's also this idea of care work integration, which I'll explain a bit later, in how you can also use this to incentivize care work. And care work is sort of your internal work that needs to be done to maintain the platform, to do organizing that often isn't made visible. And the key to UNicoins wasn't just process and collaboration, that is our first priority, but secondly, also in making work visible, making this extra work, this voluntary work that happens, is the system collaboration, and a lot of that is care work. So it was thinking around those inspirations. Now, what would be the user rights? These are the potential ones we have sort of explored, and it would be worthy to have further comment on this. But at level 0, you would just be onboarded. This is your onboarding into the community, as well as your ability to then be assigned tasks. So now you're looking to accumulate UNicoins once you've been onboarded, and you're willing to offer your work, your time, in exchange for those UNicoins. Now, once you then have accumulated a certain amount of UNicoins, and in this example, 16 hours or 16 epochs, as we call them later, you'll receive 16 UNicoins. Now, this might be in one go, or it might have been in a few initiatives that you've accumulated this amount. Now, once you've reached that level, you might then have the opportunity to propose initiatives. And I think what's helpful in thinking around this is how we come up with projects in the United Nations system. Then as you're moving up to the second level, you've accumulated more, you have more experience, and also there's a sort of a meritocracy built into the system. You're now being able to validate proposals. So not just a propose, a new idea, but there's thinking around the higher levels of validation, and then further up that hierarchical level then to have the endorsement, and it would require then validation and endorsement, of course, to then solidify that proposal. Now, also, once you receive a certain level, you can think of this as sort of a project manager role, where you could then be facilitating that initiative. And then also, once you get to a very high level, have accumulated multiple or meeting the threshold for level 5, you can have systemic importance. And this is also then in thinking about how the network is actually managed, and there will be then thinking on the governance aspects of how that can be modified to further optimize the circulation, as that's ultimately what the goal would be. Now, it also could have voting power. So if you want to think about this example, here, as many people are putting in their time, and as Eleonora described in the collaborator model, they're budgeting a project. So if you want to think of a project that would take 100 hours of time, various parties are putting that in. The voting power could come from the amount of tokens they put in, as well as their badge level. It could be a combination thereof, and it's sort of a function in the system that will allow them to have certain say as decisions are being made by that project. You can think of this like a project board, for example, and this would then give a certain weight, not necessarily, but that's one of the options. It's one of the functionalities you can use in the system, is one of the ones that we explored in optimizing the meritocratic principles inside UNicoin. So next slide. Now, a bit related, but I just wanted to give more of the gamification, because these were just some of the ideas in making this a bit more fun, though it's very much linked to the badges I just discussed, but giving sort of themes to those badges. So as you're starting off in the early badge levels, you're a unicorn. As you're moving up, you're a griffin, which is actually a mystical creature of greatness and fights for positive things. We did a little bit of research on these. We had a bit of fun on this aspect. Doves being not only a symbol of peace, and one that's very much aligned with the UN principles, and then thinking around how this international symbolic of peace is also the highest form that you can reach in the UNicoin ecosystem, and how that also could support, and I'll get into that later, some of the dispute resolutions and mediations that also may be necessary, or at least being considered, to maintaining the ecosystem in a very healthy manner. The olive branches, these are the smart, for those that are aware in blockchain, but it's also just in programming, the code or the smart contracts, the logic that you're ultimately underpinning this. So the logic that sits underneath the code for the model, as well as the badges, as well as potential voting. This would all be then enshrined in the code. However, inspired by the UN flag was the olive branches, which sort of ties it all together. And then the epochs was just a name for the hours, because the UNicoins has to be represented against a certain value. That value is time, and the quantity of time chosen, at least in the white paper, was to have an hour, so an epoch of time, epoch. And for those that are more technically agile, there's timestamps, right, in computing. So it would be, that would be your value that you're actually quantifying, although that could be broken up into smaller units as well. And then the badges. These are the dove feathers, again, working on the theme of the dove. So you would be getting your various dove feathers that would be providing you with different user rights in the system. Next slide. So on the UN system infrastructure, here we were also very much exploring other blockchain ideations that are occurring in the UN system, as well as the general trend. Most notably, the UN Digital ID, the winner of the UN Reimagine Challenge, as well as a very innovative solution that is moving towards scale and will be offering a digital ID solution for all UN personnel. Therefore, there's a logic both from it being the winner of the UN Reimagine Challenge, as well as offering already that identity layer, so that will be the futuristic identity for all UN personnel, to then thinking around what integration could possibly be with UN Digital ID as having that wallet attached to that ID. So that would actually be very much aligned with our thinking and very useful. And I think in general, UN Digital ID does open up all types of potential innovations in the UN system, which is why it would be an exciting potential partner. As well, we've explored the Atrium, which is also, as many of you know, a very innovative incubator of blockchain ideas in the UN system, as well as having its own nodal network between the current agencies of WFP, UNFPA, I'm sorry, UNICEF and UNDP. I think others will be joining. And this is then thinking around what is the consortium network between, what is tying those agencies together. That's a bit the promise of this enterprise blockchain, which gets to my third point then on looking at what is the general trend. It seems to be often towards permissioned and enterprise blockchain solutions, so private permissioned. That means it would be within the UN system, between the participating entities that would be joining this network. And that's quite logical for the organization, as well as it does offer promise in the way it does connect the UN agencies and thinking around a one UN and how blockchain can actually be a powerful tool in facilitating that from a technical level. What you'll see below are some of the, in the paper, some of the technical areas that we covered. I don't want to spend too much time into that. However, please look at the paper and we can discuss that if anyone has questions and answers around, requires answers around some of those points. So we'll move on to the next slide. In our timeline, so we had a very ambitious timeline. Most notably, our first deliverable was the white paper, and now considering moving into both prototyping as well as we had worked very successfully with UN online volunteers, looking at online volunteers potentially assisting in the technical aspects and development. However, we are looking for other partners that would wish to collaborate with us, as it is ultimately a cross-system collaboration model. And then we hope to then take that, both what we've learned in the prototype, and we're exploring options within the Young UN network itself, as well as then what technical specification documentation we could be creating, as well as potentially having actually a prototype of this token designed, so that we would then be able to scale that up. And that's sort of the next level. So we can test both the incentive and the value structures that are discussed in the paper to make sure that they really are fit for purpose. And we can document that and modify if necessary, as well as then that will then support the technical specifications, because once you have that incentive structure fully developed, that's when then you would be setting up that up in the smart contract logic. Next slide, sorry. Yeah. So this is now an open question. We didn't do this as a poll because we really wanted this to be a bit interactive as possible in the Q&A and also the chat. So if those who are quite knowledgeable in this area, we would very much appreciate the various blockchain solutions you might recommend, both in prototyping and scaling. I'd be very interested to hear your views, as this would also filter into our very participatory approach to that technical specification document I was just discussing.